This town.
All right, Eric, we're live here. Wanted to go ahead and say hello to everybody that's listening in. We got Jesse Roth, Johnny Yarborough, and a bunch of other people. Okay. So let's see. So Eric, if you want to start us off and let us know who you are, where you're from, and give us a little, let us know a little. Let's see. I think your mic is muted, Eric.
Oh,
Yep, there we go. I can hear you now.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, it was muted, and everybody, good evening, and thank you for having me. Well known. This is a privilege for me, and the sun is over the yard arm long ago here on the East Coast. So that's with my cheers that you couldn't hear to everybody that's listening in. And
Okay.
I'm certainly looking forward to this interview with you this evening. Well known. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for coming by. And, it's definitely, oops, I didn't mean to put that up there. Let's see. Yeah. So if you want,
Did I lose you? I think I lost your audio.
oh, did you?
Oh,
Can
there
you
you
hear
are.
me?
Yeah, I can.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that.
It's
If you can,
technology.
start us off, let us know who you are, where you're from.
Well, of course, my name is Erik Ronningen, and I was an Army brat growing up with my three sisters. We lived all over the United States. My father was in the Army. He was in World War II and then in Korea, and then he was stationed in China and Japan, and we followed him all over the country and to China and Japan. My youngest sister was actually born in Shanghai. And so when we mention that to new people, they say, wow, she doesn't even look Chinese. So it gets a chuckle. But we've lived all over. We've lived in Fort Leavenworth. We've lived in Paris, Texas, lived in up in Wisconsin. We've lived out in San Diego, down at Coronado. Of course, the East Coast, the Pentagon was always headquarters. And we grew up in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia when we weren't traveling everywhere else around the world. And I had three sisters and a mother. My parents were separated and then divorced, and I didn't know that for many years. My mother was a fabulous disciplinarian, and we never saw my father when they were married, so it didn't matter that they were divorced because everything was normal. And we grew up and have had a rather full and interesting life. when I was
Yeah.
in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains with a mother and three sisters and no father and no male influence. I made a promise to myself, two promises. One, that I would never get married. And of course, I broke that promise. And two, I would never live in or near a big city. And that promise was broken also. And all for good reasons. So had it not been broken, I would have missed the experiences of September 11th, 2001, which having survived it and gone through it, it's a curiosity, but I would not have missed it for the world. The opportunities it's given me to talk with people, to help them, to strengthen them, to encourage them, because there's a lot of difficulty with people that went through that experience. So I'm privileged to help in any way I can. And I've talked to thousands and thousands of people down at the World Trade Center site when it was being cleaned up and rebuilt. I'd go down there and inside the fence and talk to the tourists, just thousands of tourists every day, and answer their questions. And if anyone ever asked if I was there, then I would tell them a short version of my morning. And
Yeah.
it was very therapeutic talking to all those people. The experience, as interesting as it was, did have some fascinating side effects that of which I was not aware in the beginning, but my goodness, there are definitely side effects to all of this with everybody.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So what did you do for a living? What was your career? How did you end up working at the World Trade Center?
Well, it's a good question. My career has been a little bit of everything. I was a professional oboist for 12 years of my life. And that was before I got a full 4-year scholarship to Valley Forge Military Academy in Wayne, Pennsylvania. And from there, I was commissioned in 1966, the height of Vietnam. I had asked to go to Vietnam as my first, second, and third choice because, we're young and invincible and full of beans. And they sent me to Germany. So when I got my orders to Germany, I asked my best girlfriend to marry me, and we had a 2-year honeymoon. We had a lovely time. And I was in the Corps of Engineers, and 6 weeks after I arrived, they put me in charge of a NATO nuclear weapons storage and deployment site, literally right on the Iron Curtain. That was fascinating, a fascinating job with the Army.
Yeah, it
came
sounds
home.
important.
Well, I had a lot of nuclear weapons. It was just fascinating. And we were too young for that kind of responsibility, but it all worked out. And then I left and came home and worked in a number of jobs over the years. I worked for a medical instrumentation company, and then I worked for a publishing company for a couple of years. Then I worked for a contract furniture company for nearly 20 years. And then I started a number of my own companies, and I was between jobs, and the director of security for the World Trade Center site, who was a good friend of mine, approached me and talked for 15 minutes about what he needed to be done for a new access control system down at the World Trade Center site to upgrade from the bombings of 1993. He talked for 15 minutes. I looked him dead in the eye and nodded and grunted and did all of the appropriate signs. And at the end, he said, "Can you do it?" And I thrust out my hand and shook his, and I said, "Doug, I'm your man." I went home and told my wife that I'd been offered a job. He talked for 15 minutes, and I did not understand a single word he said. But I knew that if I got the job, I'd figure it out. And I did get it. And it was for a 2-year project, and the 2-year project went into 5 years. And then because I was a consultant, the rules and regulations were that after 5 years, if you weren't hired as an employee, they'd let you go. And then 9/11 happened, right, almost at the end of the 5 years. And on September 11th at 9 a.m., the director of security, Doug, and the would be considered the president of the Port Authority, the executive director, were to sign my paperwork for me to become a permanent employee of the Port Authority. The executive director was up on windows on the world at the top of the North Tower, and Doug was at his post down in the security operations center in the basements of the South Tower when the towers collapsed. So I missed becoming an employee by 14 minutes.
Wow.
So, and I remained a consultant for the next 15 years. And gosh, what an interesting 15 years that has been.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. So can you take us through like your day to day and what you would do prior to 9/11? So, where were you living at the time and you're traveling into the World Trade Center and just kind of
Yes. Yeah, well, I lived north in Westchester County, north of the city. So I'd take the train, Metro North, take the train into the city, into Grand Central Terminal, walk down to Grand Central Station and pick up the subways that would take me down to Fulton Street, and then walk the couple of blocks west into the World Trade Center. And my jobs, the first 2 years was designing and architecting a new access control system, which they did implement. And then, and that went from 2 years to 5 years. And then I was transferred to a different department, and I was working on the monorail payment system going out to Newark International Airport when 9/11 happened. So it was just a normal office job, paperwork, and all that goes along with that. And
so you're actually working security inside of the World Trade Center.
yes, yeah,
Oh,
exactly. So
yeah, that's pretty cool.
and of course, then September 11th came, and that was a terrific day because I was going to be made a permanent employee with all of the benefits of employment. So
Yeah.
I was looking forward to that day, and I had a dream the night before of the towers collapsing, and it's in the not necessarily the preface, but it's in the beginning of my book. It talks about the dream that I had of the towers collapsing. The dream is not quite the same that it is as it happened, but that was very interesting. And
kind of like a premonition.
well, yes, and it was a gorgeous, what a beautiful day. Well known. You know about New York City. It was always very smoggy and cloudy most of the time. But September 11th was just an absolutely crystal clear day, not a cloud in the sky. And and as I left the subway system and walked down Fulton towards the Twin Towers, I saw the magnificent blue sky and just thought of what a beautiful day for flying. When I was in high school, I worked a summer job at the Leesburg Airport in Leesburg, Virginia. And flying was always kind of fun, which is ironic because it was a beautiful day for flying, as we all know. And I got into the World Trade Center, got my normal 20-ounce cup of coffee, said hello to the normal police that were there, and to the bomb sniffing dog that was there, said hello and ruffled his feathers, Cirrus, and that was Port Authority police officer David Lim. So we knew each other, and also the chief of police for the World Trade Center. We always exchanged greetings as we passed in the morning. So I took the elevators up and got to my office, and my office was on the south side, which had on the 71st floor, and the view of New York Harbor was just fabulous. So I'd always take a few minutes before I'd sit down and turn on my computer and get to work. I'd take a few minutes to stand right at the windows overlooking the harbor and watch the boats plying up and down, the tourist boats going out to Ellis Island and the Statue of Liberty. And when the ocean liners came in, and they'd have military vessels come in. Gosh, it was just a wonderful view. And I was sitting down, I sat down, and I was preparing the last of the paperwork for my 9 a.m. meeting, and my boss was late, and the time was about almost quarter of 9, and I figured he was in the elevator. He was usually in the elevators coming up when he was late. When out of the blue, the most incredible explosion sounded from up above, and the tower, it was as if it was hit by a giant boxer with a roundhouse swing. That tower snapped and twisted south, twisting north, and then back south again, and then settling. And the roar from up above, well known, was so loud, there's just no way to describe it. And I describe it as 1,000 freight trains colliding. And it was so loud, I thought first I was going to be slingshot through the windows and go down the 800 feet to the plaza level. Well, that didn't happen. I kicked my chair out and rolled into the open area. And because the roar was so loud, I knew the top of the tower was coming down. So I bent way over. You know, it's an automatic reaction to protect the body, the head, and the main body. And as I bent over, I said to myself, stand up and die like a man. And I stood up, and I was still facing south, and those fireballs came whooshing, swizzling, exploding right outside the windows. And I thought, oh my gosh, we're gonna die from those fireballs exploding out the window. And all that took place probably in the first 5 seconds. And that was the beginning of my morning. And yells from all over the floor were, evacuate the towers. Now, the evacuation was not in elevators, of course, and very few elevators were operating, but they were all shut down automatically. Plus, they were severed when that aircraft came through. And I'll bet that floor was empty inside of a minute and a half. Well, I had just finished my 20-ounce cup of coffee, and I knew it was going to be a long day. So, of course, I went to the men's room and then came back, and then Whitney, another consultant, was there, a young lady. She was staring out the north windows. And I went over to Whitney and I said, Whitney, are you okay? She said, yes, I'm just packing up my computer. And she was like frozen there. And so I said, well, I'll escort you down the stairs. And she suggested, and I learned this a year later when we had lunch, that she suggested well, let's walk the floor to make sure everybody's out. So we did the entire perimeter, and those floors are just slightly less than 1 square acre. And so we walked the entire floor. No one was there. And I said, I'll meet you in the elevator or in the stairwell. I didn't specify a stairwell, not remembering that we had 3 of them in the core of the building. And she got there first, and then I came later because I had to go back to my desk to pick up the backups for the 2-year project that I was working on at Newark International Airport. So I had that, and now there's smoke starting to come into the floor, and there's water in the carpets. And I walked by the freight elevator, and you can just hear it sounds like a waterfall going down inside the freight elevator. And then I entered the nearest stairwell. And my first thought was to go up to help, to do whatever I could to help up above, because I knew there was a lot of trouble up there. But the stream of people coming down was so packed that it was impossible to walk up. So after I tried a few times to work my way between the people coming down, I turned around and joined the flow of thousands of people coming down those stairs. And we'd go down and round and round and down. And every now and then we'd hit pockets of aviation smoke where you absolutely could not breathe. And at one point I'd caught up with Whitney. She was in the same stairwell. So I did escort her down. And we hit a pocket of aviation smoke. Gosh, you just couldn't breathe. I thought we were going to all suffocate here in the stairs. But we made it through. And then she asked me if I had a handkerchief. And I pulled a handkerchief out of my pocket. And then she looked at me with that unasked question of, is it clean? And I nodded, answering her unasked question. And so she put a handkerchief over her mouth. And I tried to put my suit jacket over my mouth and nose, but it was to no avail. And everyone's just walking down and down and around and down. And it took not quite an hour to get down. I got into the teen floors and we began to see the firefighters coming up in all of their bunker gear and tanks of air. Oh my gosh, they had a long ways to go. And they were already exhausted. And all the employees are passing water to them and patting them on the shoulders and encouraging them in what they were going to do. And I got down into the lower teen floors, and now there's dark, dirty chocolate brown water oozing through the walls and flowing down the stairs. Well, that morning I had just put on a brand spanking new pair of black wingtip shoes that I had spit shined, and a brand new suit that was fully pressed. So I stopped and rolled up my trousers above my knees because I didn't want my trousers to get wet. And there was nothing I could do with my shoes. So I just sloshed my way down. And we finally got down to the mezzanine level. And there were guards on either side asking what floors we'd all come from. So I mentioned 71. And all the guards had formed a corridor by standing shoulder to shoulder so that we couldn't get through. They were directing us out onto West Street. Well, I wanted to see what was happening. So I just shouldered my way through the line of guards and went to the north windows. And I put the tips of my toes right on the window. And my nose was about not even an inch off those incredible windows that overlooked the plaza. And what a mess. My gosh, the debris was swirling around and coming down. You couldn't see any of the terrazzo on the plaza level. It was full of boxes and just paper and dust and furniture that had been blown out of the tops of the tower. And
so this is when you finally reached the street.
Not on the street yet. I'm still inside the tower, the north tower.
Okay.
I went to look out at the north side of the plaza. And I see bodies out in the plaza. And then I look down, and not 6 inches from my feet were 3 additional bodies right at my feet. And after walking down 1,521 stairs, my body was totally exhausted. And there was zero emotion. I just looked at him and thought, my God. And then I walked over to the east side and overlooked the plaza, overlooking where that magnificent fountain was. It was 5 acres of plaza where they do Broadway show at lunchtime and all sorts of entertainment. And I'm standing there looking, and it's just as bad. Stuff is floating down everywhere. And as I'm standing there with my nose on the window, a male in a suit, horizontal, facing the windows, comes straight down. And when we hit eye level, for an instant, time stopped, and we made eye contact. In the same instant, the time continued. There was the sound of a shotgun going off. When those bodies hit, it sounded like a shotgun discharging. Wow. And the fluids that came out from that hit were dripping down the window in front of me. And that's when I said to myself, I'm not leaving the towers. I'm going to the South Tower to help my best friend who's in charge of the whole evacuation process down in the Emergency Command Center, which was in one of the 5 basement levels of the World Trade Center. So I walked down the escalators into the lobby, and good Lord, the lights were out. The giant signage was dangling on one chain. The elevator doors, many of them were blown out, and there was just debris everywhere. And there were 18 or 24 revolving doors going from the lobby into the mall. Those had all been blown out. And so I walked through those, and then there's a waterfall that you had to walk through. I suspected it was from the fountain, but there was plenty of water coming down everywhere. So I walked through that, got into the mall, and the water was about up to the bottom of our ankles. And again, the lines of security were directing us out. So I broke through the line of security. I was going to the South Tower to get to the stairs going down into the basement. So I walked the 200 feet through the dark mall. The emergency lighting was on. And when I got to the stairs behind Ben and Jerry, there were half a dozen firefighters and police. And boy, they all ganged up on me, asking me why I was still there and what I was doing, and to get the hell out of the building. Well, I had a mission, and no one was going to deter me. So I finally convinced them that I had to get down into the basements. But they told me that they were bringing equipment up, and I would have to wait. So I said, okay. And as I stood there for like 20 seconds, suddenly I had to move. I just started dancing. I had to move. So what I did, I walked into the lobby of the South Tower, and again, the signage was broken. The elevator doors were blowing out. Looked like Manhattan had been evacuated 20 years ago. Nobody. So I went to the west side and looked at all of the, checked to see if there was anyone at any of the security desks. And I checked the center area, then up to the fire command center on the east side. Nobody. And while I'm doing all this, I hear a low-throated groaning, grinding deep within the bowels of the tower. And I was just too exhausted to consider what it was. And of course, what it was the beginning, the prelude to the collapse of the South Tower. So then I walked out of the South Tower, through the mall, waded through the mall. There were police in the mall yelling at me, and I just ignored everybody. Went all the way to the northeast side, walked up the escalator, up where Border Books was, and then exited out onto Church Street, I think it was. And I got out, and there were thousands and thousands and thousands of people gawking. And I walked and I stopped. I got out of the line of people evacuating, and I turned around and looked, and that's when I discovered the South Tower had also been hit. Well, I could not get into the basements to help in the security command center, but I knew I could try to offer what help I could to whomever was lying at the base of those towers. And there were plenty of people at the base of those towers. So I was literally marching south. And as I got to the entryway, the stairs going east into the plaza, just as I was about to go east, a little voice in my head said, "Walk east." And there was no question but to obey that little voice. My right foot came down. I did a military left flank. I walked maybe a dozen paces, and then the earthquake happened. And I thought, my God, we're going to collapse right into the subway system and all die. Well, we did not collapse, but at the same time, those thousands and thousands of people started to panic. And I turned around and watched the collapse of the South Tower. And for an instant, I thought, my God, we're going to die. And then in the same instant, I said, where can you run to escape a quarter-mile high building falling down on you? And I was
not very far.
I was totally at peace with myself. And then
Plus when you got that adrenaline rush, you're running in like a slow motion too.
Well, I refused to run because you panic and you can't not think. Emotion is taking over and there's no thinking involved. But what I did, I knew it was not wise to be caught up in a panicking crowd of people. So I matched my speed to theirs and worked my way south and tucked myself behind a column of the Millennium Hotel and watched everybody run by, screaming, arms flailing. And when I first got out of the towers, I noticed splotches of blood on the street, and I wondered what those splotches of blood were. But now I'm tucked behind the column and I'm watching thousands of people running by. Ladies' high-heeled shoes are being thrown into the air, and men's loafers, they're literally running out of their shoes. And then I discovered what those splotches of blood were. People in bare feet were stepping on the shrapnel from the first aircraft coming into the North Tower, and of course, cutting their feet. And there was blood all over the street.
Wow.
Well, the panicking crowds thinned out, so I stepped out to go back to the Twin Towers, of which there was only one left. And again, that little voice said, "Walk east." Now, just before that voice gave me that command, I stood facing west, and there was that 800-foot high pyroclastic cloud-like a cloud of dust and debris barreling down on everybody. My gosh, what an experience that was. And I said to myself, I am so exhausted. I do not know how I'm going to survive another one of these catastrophes. But you don't quit. I turned around because the little voice said, "Walk east," and I knew where east was. It was behind me. And I kept an eye. I refused to run, but I could walk pretty fast. And I kept an eye on that cloud. And just before it hit, I took a great big inhalation of air and held my breath. And then boom, it hit. And there was instant blackness, pitch darkness. All of the screaming and yelling instantly stopped. And you could not see an inch in front of you. I kept walking. I'm holding my breath. The sandstorm is swirling all about. I try to pull my suit jacket over my nose and mouth and head, but it's too late. And I just keep walking east and keep on walking. And I walked as far as I could, and it was time to breathe. And you know how it is when you swim underwater and you want to see how long you can stay? You stay a little too long, and you don't know if you're going to make it to the surface to inhale. Well,
Yeah.
that was the way I felt. And then I inhaled. I took half a dozen of the biggest inhalations I could, but there was no air in them. It was all this grit and sand and dirt and pulverized sheetrock and everything else. And
Yeah. I got a video of what it kind of looked like after the tower fell. So I guess, you're doing a great job of explaining it, by the way, but just kind of for the viewers who aren't
yeah,
visually picturing it, we'll play a short video real quick just to kind of show you what was going on
okay.
there.
Yep, that gives a little glimpse
Yeah.
of what it was
And
like.
then this one here is for, I believe this is what Church Street looked like. I know you were on Church Street. This is what it looked like after both towers had fallen and finally cleared, I believe.
It was a mess.
Yeah.
It was a mess down
Yes.
there, and those images don't do it justice, if we can call it justice. But
Yeah.
it was just amazing, an incredible experience. Well, I took as many breaths as I could, and everything froze up. My throat was clogged, my nostrils were stuffed, my eyes were frozen over, my ears were packed, and I'm standing in the middle of, I have no idea where I am. I'm standing, and my knees and legs are beginning to collapse. So I say to myself, well, I guess this is it. I'm going to meet my maker on some unknown street in lower Manhattan. And I wasn't frightened, but the knees started to collapse and down I was going. And just as that was happening, well known, I saw through all of this dark, evil blackness. I saw a little fuzziness, just a little fuzziness. It was a different vibration than everything else that was going on just to my right. So I gave it my all and stood up, and I raised my right hand and I touched a man and hung onto his shoulder. He was opening the back door of a delicatessen, and he walked in and I walked in behind him, and the employees were handing out liquids, and I got a bottle of water or something, and after 2 or 3 swallows I could breathe. And and that was the beginning of September 11th, 2001, and now a 24 plus year of survival and pulling it all back together again. My gosh,
Yeah.
there are a million stories, and the after effects, the side effects. Oh my goodness! But anyhow, I'll let you ask questions or however you want to do it.
Yeah, I'm sure the chat's got a couple questions too. Now, when you're leaving, so um what was walking through, because you walked all the way up to Midtown from downtown.
I did.
So what was it like walking through, some of the busiest parts of Manhattan and everything shut down and closed?
Yes. Well, after the smoke cleared, and interesting, I was in the deli, and I could breathe, and people are milling around, and you could see the pitch darkness through the windows, and it began to clear. And then I heard a woman screaming inside this delicatessen, and so I searched out the scream and the woman, and it turns out she was on a payphone. Well, I don't know if any of the young people in your chat know what a payphone is, but that's okay.
Yeah.
She was
Not
on a
like me.
payphone. She was on a payphone, and I quickly walked over to her and put my arm around her, and then put my right hand on her right hand, which was the receiver, and I very quietly calmed her down, and she hung up. And I had that phone because now other people realize there's a phone. What cell phones we had, most people had pagers, but none of them worked. They were all that service had been cut off and destroyed. So now I've got the phone number of friends up in Midtown, but I didn't know their phone number, but it was in my pocket, my jacket pocket. And I very carefully pulled that number out, put in a quarter or whatever it was in those days, carefully dialed the number, and Lee answered the phone, and I identified myself. She said, "Do you know anything about Doug?" Because we were all friends. And I said, I don't know anything about Doug. And I said, "Would you please call my mother and my wife? Thank you." And I hung up.
Yeah.
And the North Tower had not yet collapsed. So now the cloud, the majority of the cloud had passed, it cleared. So what do? I step out and I turn to go west, back to the World Trade Center, because I want to help. Again, for the 4th or 5th time, that little voice said, "Walk east." And there's absolutely no question, well known, but to obey that voice. So I did a 180. I walked east, and as I'm walking, and then I end up on the Bowery going north, which turns into Third Avenue as you get further north. And there are thousands and thousands of civilians, office workers, people, thousands of them, tens of thousands of them. Well, what they had done, the word had been disseminated to evacuate all of Lower Manhattan from the Battery up to Canal Street. And that's got to be hundreds of thousands of people. And
Oh yeah.
everybody was walking north and then walking over the Brooklyn Bridge and walking towards the Hudson River to catch ferries, which weren't running really. That's a whole different story. And so I kept walking, and as the further north I walked, the more of an anomaly I became. My suit, my hair, my little black fabric briefcase, my black Florsheim shoes, I looked like the Pillsbury Doughboy. And my trousers were rolled up above my knees. I'd totally forgotten all of that. So I looked like a silly person. And people were coming up to me, offering me their cell phones so I could call home. And of course, none of the phones worked. And they're all giving me words of encouragement and asking what happened. And I got to a point where I was so thirsty, I had to get a drink of water. There was another delicatessen in the Bowery. I walked into, they had bottled water all of the way in the back. I struggled to get back there. I pulled out a bottle of water, walked back to the front, put it on the counter, and the man behind the counter took one look at me and he said, "That will be $1." Well, all of Earth was handing out free liquids to everybody those days. And I just looked him in the eye, and my whole body was a wreck. It was shaking so badly. I said nothing. It had to have taken me 2 minutes to get my right hand into my right pocket to pull out a dollar bill. And I put that dollar bill on the counter, took my water, went outside and collapsed on the sidewalk, watching thousands of people walk by. And I drank that bottle of water. Oh gosh, that was wonderful.
Well, you were on the Bowery, so people probably thought you were like a bum or a drunk or something.
Exactly. Much later, in reviewing that, I said, this man sees bums all the time. And what do they look like? They look like bums. Yeah. And I look like a bum. The trousers rolled up and I was filthy dirty with all this stuff all over. So, of course, he charged me $1.
Yeah, you said you had your pant legs up to your knees and you had dress shoes on and a suit. Yeah. You fit right in over there.
Yeah, it was a blue pinstripe suit. I was all ready to meet the executive director and sign that paperwork, shake his hands, and be an employee. So I got up, struggled up, worked my way up to Midtown, rang the doorbell of my friends, and Lee, who came down, the wife, came down, and she did me a once-over from head to toe, back to my head, and she broke out laughing. Well, it was such an infectious laugh, well known, that I laughed. I had to laugh too. And it broke the tension. And she invited me in and sat me down in front of the TV. Oh my God. What I saw on that TV was just totally, totally unbelievable. And in speaking to many of the other survivors, as the months and years went by, everyone that did escape those towers thought they were the only ones in their office that made it out that morning. And I thought, my God, I'm the only one that made it out. Watching those towers come down and that cloud, it was mesmerizing. I watched and sat and watched that thing, I don't know for how long. Finally, I said, "May I use your shower?" And I went up to their shower, stripped, and scrubbed 3 times. I scrubbed. I had more hair then. Washed my hair, just washed 3 times. Came out, and they had some old clothes that I was able to fit into. And then they called out and they got lunch, served me lunch, and later that afternoon, late afternoon, the trains began to run. So I walked further north up to Grand Central Terminal, and all the trains were local and they were all free. And fortunately, I found a seat on the train that I got on, because I couldn't have made it. I couldn't have stood. I would have collapsed on the floor. And rode the train up to my stop, got out, walked to my car, hopped in my car, drove it to where my wife was. And my wife's story, which is in the book, I think is more interesting than mine. But she was with the wife of the director of security. So I drove to their home, and it was up a one-way street because there was an elementary school on that street right in front of their home. And the guards coming out and waving me off and using language I can't repeat. And I just totally ignored them and parked. And someone saw me approaching in the house, and my wife, who was about 5'4" and 110 pounds, came bounding out, and she ran and launched herself at me. And I thought, my God, I'll never survive this. But I did not collapse. And it was the greatest hug I've ever had. It was a wonderful hug. So I went in and watched TV with them for a few minutes and answered what questions I could. And of course, her husband has yet to be identified and did not make it out. And I actually took her to dinner last night. So interestingly enough, and she's doing fine. And my gosh, that was day one, the day, September 11th. And I thought I was a pretty tough guy. I thought all of this did not affect me. Being a man, I thought, oh, I'm a man, I'm tough, it doesn't bother me. Well, anyone that knows a man understands. Well, yes, it did. It had a lot of side effects. For about 3 years, a lot of side effects, but the two worst were, I had that day, I started to have to urinate every 90 minutes, and that lasted for years, and it was not pleasant. And I had a funny little cough that wouldn't go away, and it'd hack up the phlegm, and it's like glowing orange and purple. It was just disgusting. Got through that, and it felt like a wet beach towel had been stuffed between my ears inside my head. You'd say something to me, and I had no idea what you were saying. So for 3 years, I had no idea what people were talking about. And no one fired me. And I had a good friend, Vic Guanera, who's one of the main characters in my book. Vic Guanera understood what I was going through because he was actually hit by debris when the North Tower came down, and was also certainly affected by this. He covered for me. I'd go to meetings, and I'd never had to run them, thank goodness. And I'd take a clipboard, an old military trick. You take a clipboard, and it looked like you were doing something. And I'd listen to the presenter, and I'd make notes. I'm scribbling, and I'm looking up and looking them in the eye and nodding very intelligently. And the whole thing is over, and my notes are just scribbles. I have no idea what the man is saying. I could not follow a sentence. I'd hear the first half of your sentence, and then by the time you finish the last half of your sentence, I don't know what the first half was. I had no idea what people were talking about. That went on for years. And then the second major side effect was, my whole life I've loved lightning and thunder. And as a child, I'd run outdoors and run to the highest hill and watch the lightning and listen to that thunder. And gosh, it was just thrilling to me. Well, after 9/11, I was like a frightened little boy. There were certain kinds of thunder when it would come in that at night I would hide under the sheets. Gosh, I felt like such a coward. But what a curious side effect. I finally got.
I think it was like the sound.
It was the sound.
Like the thunder sound.
It was the sound of the thunder that sounded like A the American Airlines Flight 11 coming into the top of the North Tower, and B, a
Wow.
different sound completely of the South Tower collapsing. And when the thunder sounded like either of those two sounds, gosh, I don't know why, but it just affected me terribly. And I was taking the train. Now, all of our schedules had changed, but anyway, I was still taking the train into Grand Central, and I could not stand on the platform. Trains would roar by, the expresses would roar by. I couldn't stand on the platform. I'd walked all the way to the back of the platform, turn my back to the tracks when a train was coming. With both hands, I'd grab the rail, and I would just calm myself as much as I could. Calm, quiet, balanced, as the train would go by. I did that every day for months. And then I turned around and faced the tracks and did that every day for months. And then I took a step forward, and then another step and another step. I finally got so that I could be a normal person standing on the train platform. And one place I cannot be, although I'm getting better at it, is when you're driving or walking under the railroad trestle and a train goes overhead. That's still hard. But I keep myself nice and calm and quiet and level as I can. Take a nice quiet breath and keep moving forward. So I've been working on that for 24 years. And I couldn't talk. Now I can understand conversations now. So I'm back to normal.
Yeah, you got a really captivating story.
Well, it was certainly an interesting day, but the opportunities I've had with having gone through and survived that experience, talking every day, because I had nothing to do for a couple of years. And I wondered why I was never fired or let go. And I'm still a consultant. And, but there was no work for us. And so I'd go down to the World Trade Center site and I'd talk to the tourists. And then we built a huge fence around the 16-acre site, fence that ostensibly people could not climb over to get into the site. But I wore all my IDs, and I'd walk inside and up and down and ask people if I could answer their questions. And I talked to thousands and thousands of people. That was so therapeutic, well known, that it really helped me come out of all of this. And then the second day, September 11th, I got home. My wife and I drove home, and we stayed up till like 3 o'clock in the morning. Every light in the house was on, and I could not stop talking to her. I could talk to her and understand her all right, but we talked and talked and talked and talked. I just couldn't stop talking about that morning. And then she said it was time. And then we went to bed, turned all the lights off. 5 minutes later, she said, "You want to get up and talk some more?" So we got up and turned all the lights back on. And day 2, we did the same thing. And a little thought was popped into my head that said, "Write a book." Well, I was curious. So I gave that some thought for a couple of weeks, a month or two. And then I went out and bought a recorder, identified some of the characters I wanted to interview. That's it. Oh, and I need to tell you about the photograph on that cover. That's a fascinating story. Bought a recorder, asked the people that are in the book if I could take their story, if they wouldn't mind being published inside about their experiences. And then got it all transcribed and then worked it up. And I spent a lot of time on that. And I got about 3/4 through the manuscript. And this is now a few years after 9/11. And my wife had colon cancer, and she was going through a very difficult part of that experience. And so I shelved the project. And it'd been on the shelf a year or two. And now I've since invented, I've gotten so that I can talk again and listen to conversations and contribute at my job. And I'd invented a new security program for the transportation industry that was very successful. And my project manager was a lovely woman. And we're walking through the World Trade Center site. And she said, "Oh, Erik, by the way, how's your book coming?" And I said, "Oh, Terry, I've shelved it. Nobody's interested in 9/11." She looked at me and she took both of her arms, because we're in the middle of the site, and she just gestured 360 degrees. And she said, "Who are these people?" Well, there are thousands and thousands of people every day from all over the world that come work their way down to Lower Manhattan, stick their noses through the fence, and just gawk and ask questions.
Oh yeah.
And I said, "Wow." I said, "You're right." And then my first public speaking engagement was actually on the fifth anniversary, around the 5th or maybe the 8th anniversary, in front of 1,500 people. Good God, the interest was amazing. And so coincidentally, I was reunited with a classmate that I hadn't seen in over 40 years, who was a big wheel with Barnes and Noble. And I looked him up, and Barnes and Noble's was 2 blocks away from the Port Authority's temporary headquarters on Park Avenue. So I went over, I had a meeting to go to, so I left an hour or more early and went over to Barnes and Noble's, and we had a reunion, and we started having lunch once a month. And somehow it got out that I had an unfinished manuscript, and he said he'd like to see it. Well, he did, and he said, "I'd like to get this published for you," not through Barnes and Noble's, because they're not publishers, they're distributors. So I finished it, and we did everything we had to do to put it in the shape that's in today. And he found a terrific small publisher on Fifth Avenue. And by golly, he got it published, and it's still selling. It's in its 4th or 5th printing. And it's going to be printed again by Simon & Schuster has taken it up for the 25th anniversary. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And of course, it's selling.
Yeah, I dropped the link for the book in the side of the chat. If you do go on Amazon, for those of you who don't want to buy it, just want to listen to an audiobook or grab the audiobook, though, I believe the link is free right now, unless you buy a paperback or a hardcover. And all Erik wants is a good review on the Amazon. So
Yeah,
that's there.
Yeah, the reviews, and I'm not an author. I've never written a book. The reviews are just, there's well over 12 or 1,500 reviews, and they're just fabulous.
Yeah.
It's humbling. It's humbling, actually. But that photograph, if you put that photograph up again, I want to talk briefly about that photograph.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, unless you're doing something.
Yeah, I was just going to run a giveaway for the book.
Oh, go ahead.
$1,001 in the chat, and it'll enter you for the drawing. So we could do that if you want. And then I can put this image back up. We can do the book. We can talk about the book more if you want.
Wow, look at this. People in the comments. Holy smokes.
Yeah, so if you want to enter the drawing, and you'll autograph it for them, right? And ship it to them.
Oh, yeah. I'll autograph them and mail them out once I get their names and addresses.
Yep. And when you guys send me your address and an email, just go ahead and say if you'd like him to inscript it to you or anything. You could sign it to their name or something if they want it personalized, right?
Sure.
From what I've seen on Amazon, there's a compilation of a couple different stories in there.
DARPA. Wow, someone's from DARPA. Okay. I worked with you fellas many years ago.
Oh, really?
I worked with them at the Port Authority.
Hey, that's awesome. I never even knew what DARPA meant.
Nobody does.
I'll put him up on the screen. Yeah, he's a good buddy of mine. Got a bunch of questions in there. I guess we can ask questions.
Yeah, I'll be happy to answer any question. No question is there's no question that's not authorized. If I know the answer, I'll answer it.
All right, let's see. So it's going to random pick one. A person in here for a winner. And then all they have to do is just email me and I'll shoot it over to Erik and we'll autograph that book for you and get it out to you.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Barbara Buffalo. Very
Barbara
cool.
Buffalo. She's got a crown on her head.
Yeah, because she's the winner.
She's the winner.
I'll add this stage. There you go. And you can tell us. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut that down too quickly.
Now, for the cover of the book is a photograph taken by Jim Usher, who is one of the main characters in the book. And he's an interesting person. He was running a project, part of the upgrade of the 93 bombing, upgrading the security in the Twin Towers in the World Trade Center. And he's credited with evacuating one of the basements in the South Tower, because he felt. He was in the basements of the South Tower. The first plane came in at the top of the North Tower, but he felt a subtle difference of air pressure. Now, he spent some time in some of the three-letter agencies in his earlier life, and he knew that there was something amiss. So he went around and evacuated the entire floor, and then he went up into the lobby and he saw a couple of men injured standing right outside the perimeter of the South Tower. And the South Tower had not yet been hit. He walked out the main entry door into the plaza, picked up one of the fellows, put the fellow's arm over his shoulder, and he walked him up to probably I call it a first aid station, but it's probably an ambulance. And as he was coming back to the South Tower to help the second fellow, as he approached the tower, the second plane came in and drove through the south side of the South Tower. The overpressure was so much, it slammed him face down onto the Terrazzo Plaza. And he knew he was going to die. He had a small digital camera in his inside jacket pocket. He reached in and blindly pointed the camera skyward and snapped what that photograph is, because he wanted his two daughters to know how their father died after they pried that camera out of his dead hands. Well, he did not die, but he had hundreds and hundreds of glass splinters in his body and spent a lot of time in the hospital having them extracted. But that photograph he kept extremely private. He showed almost nobody that photograph. It was so personal to him. He showed it to me, and we lost track of each other after 9/11. Everybody lost track of everybody. And we bumped into each other a couple of years later. And now I've written the book, and the publisher, and we're looking for a cover. And I woke up in the middle of the night with the thought, call Jim Usher. I hunted him down and I called him and I explained what I was doing. And I asked him if I could have permission, if he'd kindly give me the digital copy of the photograph, and he'd get credit for it. He did not even hesitate. He absolutely agreed, emailed me the digital photograph, and I sent it over to my agent, who knew people that could enhance the image, because 2001 the digital photographs were not all that good yet, especially with little cameras. And that's the photograph, his photograph. It's on the cover of the book. It's gripping. And our national colors are still flying, but not for another minute, not for another second or two. So it's a fabulous, fabulous shot. And his story is
Oh
in the
yeah.
book. So
Yeah, it's a really crazy. I mean, I sent you a video earlier about with that in there. I don't know if you've seen it or not. And I mean, that's like a terrifying situation there for that guy to be right under
yeah,
that, because that looks like the plane exploding into
and
the
all
building, you know?
absolutely, and all this those big chunks of metal that are falling out of the sky. He knew he was going to be speared and die from all of that.
Yeah.
His only injury was hundreds of glass shrouds in his body. They went through the suit and embedded in his body. And
Yeah.
the doctors extracted all of those glass shrouds and put them in a little jar, and he took them home, and they're on display on his mantelpiece.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah,
So
that's totally crazy. I can't believe that.
yeah, it's interesting.
Video, I could play that video for the viewers just so they can kind of see for how wild of a event that was there.
Yes, yes.
I think it's nuts. I mean, I don't know. I would have, me myself, I would have got as far away from that happening as I could have possibly got. You know what I mean?
Well, there were plenty that did, but then the makeup of man, we're all different. Those that
Yep.
want to help run towards difficulty and do what we can.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then the other half of me is thinking just really crazy. And you always hear too for people who, survived is that they did try to help somebody.
Many, many people were helping. I've got stories inside the book of how people were helping in elevator rescues, and oh my gosh, people were helping as much as they could
Yeah.
with everything. And we had no idea. Although my first thought when that top of the explosion in the top of the tower happened,
Yeah.
my first thought was that a commercial airliner had somehow flown into the top of the tower.
Yeah.
I have no idea, but that was my first thought. Yeah, and you see in the image to the left of the book, you see the new World Trade Center. I as that was being built, because of what I was doing at the World Trade Center or the Port Authority, I took a lot of people, FBI agents, because in my security program, I met with the FBI down in Washington, and they signed into my program. I took a lot of their agents to the top of that building and inside the tower. It was as it was being built. SEAL Team 6 folks, people knew to contact me, and because I knew how to get into places, and I got them. I got the all the right people that were building the towers to come in and give them a tour and take them up. SEAL Team 6, we had Delta Force personnel that were up, special forces we took in there. Gosh, I took a lot of people up into the towers and gave them tours, and many people from overseas, especially security people from Interpol to British security, EU security folks that were just on vacation. And it just happened that I was walking the fence and talking with them, and they'd show me their credentials, and I walked them through the entryway and brought them inside. And I gave a lot of personal tours, and gosh, I've given hundreds of tours to people down at the World Trade Center site since, and still am from time to time, and then take them into the museum and walk around and answer their questions. So it's just an amazing experience.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I actually was trying to get a hold of Robert O'Neill to do an interview with. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not, but I guess
Uh,
the guy who put the bullet in Osama bin Laden.
oh yeah, I've seen some of his interviews. Yes.
Yeah, I think his interview would be amazing for on here. I think that'd be a lot of fun to have him up here. Yeah, I keep getting knocked down for some reason every time I go to upload something into StreamYard. So when I
Huh.
uploaded that video for um, the cover of the book where I think they got it from or around that same area, this is an actual live video from that same moment. I believe the picture was taken of the cover of your book. So I'll play this for them to see real quick.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, you hear all that stuff falling and
Oh, oh,
it's
oh
wild.
yeah. It was. I don't have the right adjectives for anything that went on that day, so I just say it was a fascinating day.
Yeah,
Even with
yeah.
all the mayhem and the carnage. And I see, let's see here in your comments, which I haven't been looking at, but you've got, whoops, a whole bunch of people. So I think I've lost it. DARPA Team Gotti.
Yep.
Does DARPA Team Gotti know Angela?
Yeah, she was here earlier. She actually had a question for you. She asked you what company you worked for.
I was with the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. And
Okay.
for people that don't know what the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey does, it's the only port authority that was commissioned by Congress early in the 1900s, for both sides of the Hudson, for New Jersey and New York. And they operate JFK International Airport, LaGuardia Airport, Newark International Airport, the Teterboro Airport, which is the commercial small private airline airport. They run Stewart Air Base up north towards Albany. They also run operate the Atlantic City Airport. They run they own and operate the George Washington Bridge, the Holland Tunnel, the Lincoln Tunnel, and of course the World Trade Center site, which just 6 weeks before 9/11, a 99-year lease was let to Silverstein Properties to take over and run the Twin Towers and the World Trade Center. The Port Authority runs and operates the PATH system, which is the train subway system from New Jersey into New York City, Lower Manhattan, and Midtown. What have I missed? And a couple of other. It's a huge,
Yeah, the
huge.
bridges and tunnels.
Yeah, bridges and tunnels. It's a huge organization. And
Yeah.
then we set up
Angel just commented in the chat. She wants you to know that she's still here.
Who's that?
She's
Oh,
still
Angel.
listening.
Oh,
Yep.
I just bumped on it. There she is. Hello, Angel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, she's still here. We still got a lot of people. We got 112 people watching us live. If you guys have questions, you guys can go ahead and put them in the chat. I'm going to try to read through some of them that I could still see on StreamYard, and we'll
Good.
ask Eric a couple more questions. Let's see here.
Yeah. My brother was a detective.
So I
yeah.
seen one earlier from PZ that I don't see anymore, but okay, here it is. Tell me about something that you saw somebody do on 9/11 to help another person that you will never forget.
Let's see. Interesting question. Good question. Did I see? Gosh, so many people were helping. What did I see specifically?
It's probably so much that it's like it's hard to narrow something down like that, I bet.
Um, God, there was a woman. I can no longer recall her name. A lovely lady who was quadriplegic in her wheelchair. Gosh, she was a it is, I suspect, a delightful lady. Walking down all those stairs, she came out into the level through the door, and I was there, and I said her first name, whatever it was, I can't recall any longer. And I asked her, I said, "My gosh, can I give you a hand to help her down?" And she said, "Oh, thanks, but I've got four of my good friends here." And they came and they each picked up a corner of her wheelchair and stuck it on their shoulders and began walking her down the stairs. And she made it out.
Oh wow.
And that was a remarkable, memorable scene.
Yeah, I seen somebody had mentioned earlier, I believe it was Rainbow Melon. She asked about did it weren't there a lot of nurseries in daycares in
Oh yes,
the trade
oh
center?
yeah. There was a big nursery daycare center, and that they all every one of them got evacuated and they were safe.
Okay.
And
That's
and
amazing to hear.
the concrete staircase, which was outdoors, it went down to, was it D Street, is in the museum because it allowed the evacuation of a lot of people off and the daycare center uh, out of the World Trade Center.
Yeah, I wasn't looking for a six story there. That one would be really tough to hear. So I'm glad that's a positive one.
Yeah, and Chris Capello works in the financial district. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Of course, now you're down there, and actually, they did a wonderful job with the memorial. I'm very pleased with how they did the memorial. I've taken a lot of people through there.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the memorial as well. I do have certain things that I do disagree with it on, um, just as an outsider. I don't think it should be made into like a tourist thing where you pay to go. I feel like it should be you know, um, a little bit more respectful, but I also learned that everybody who is working at the memorial is also a survivor. So,
And the memorial is different than the museum.
yeah,
The
yeah, the
memorial is
museum and all
free.
that.
The memorial is free. You can come and go at will, and
Yeah,
people walk to their offices through the memorial. Some do, but it's the museum that people pay for to get in to see. And yes, the docents are, many of them are survivors. And I was actually a docent for, gosh, what was the name of that place across the street that was set up? Uh, we gave a lot of tours also to visitors.
hmm. The place across the street, the mall.
Oh, and it was set up. It was set up actually, literally next door to the fire department. They were the first fire department to respond, of course, and they lost
I think it was
almost,
ladder
almost
10.
that's it. They lost almost everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, we lost 343 firefighters that morning.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
37 Port Authority police officers, and I've got it here. What's the number? 23 New York City police officers
Wow.
that morning.
Yeah, it's
It's a lot.
definitely a horrible story. I mean, and that's part of the reason why I like to do 9/11 interviews because I meet people on a day-to-day basis that are younger than 2001. So I feel like the best way to learn about 9/11 and a good starting place to learn the actual story of 9/11 is to hear it from a survivor.
Yes, yes. Well, it comes alive rather
Yeah.
than parroting it out of a history book. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I've spoken to a number of high schoolers and elementary school students, and they're all interested. None of them were born at even around 9/11, but I do speak with them, and they have good questions and they're interested.
Yeah.
Have I? This is an interesting rainbow melon. Have you
Yep.
ever had a recurring dream after your experience? That is a good question. And here's my answer. For 6 months, the first 6 months after 9/11, every single night, I dreamed of being down at the pile, on the pile, working my way down, reaching down and saying, grab my hand, I'll help you out. And I would help pull people out that died that morning. They were trapped under there. I'd help them out and I'd pass them on to somebody above me to take them away. I did that every night for 6 months. Now I had two other fascinating dreams, not reoccurring. The first of which was I was with the security director who did not make it out, and he and I were sitting at like a kitchen table across from each other. Whatever business had transacted, we finished, and he got to walk away. And I said, Doug, I have a question for you. And he stopped and turned around, and I said, and the reason I asked this question was because many of the executives at the Port Authority came to me and asked me where Doug was when the towers came down. And I told him that he was at his post at the Security Command Center in the basement of the South Tower, because that was his post, and he did what he did. So I asked him, I said, Doug, where were you when the towers collapsed? And he said, I was in the Security Command Center. I said, thank you. So that dream confirmed where he was. The third dream, which is interesting, was Doug and I were giving a tour to the 50 or 60 people we knew that did not make it out of the tower that morning. Doug and I were at the front of all the people, and we were walking through the World Trade Center before it had collapsed. And as we were walking around, someone would point out and say, that's where I was, and where I was killed when the tower collapsed. And we walk a little bit more, and someone would point and say, I was killed over there when the tower collapsed. So those are fascinating dreams to me, and suggest that there is a lot more to dreams and to life than we're led to believe. And yeah, dreams are fascinating. Thank you for that question. Have you suffered any health issues? Have you suffered any health issues from that experience? Sorry, I've been in and out. If you've already answered it. Mostly side effects. I guess there would be health issues, but the side effects that I had earlier, of course, I couldn't understand what people were saying for about 3 years. I'd go to work, I'd look at the inbox, I'd take the inbox, flip through what's in it, and I'd dump the whole thing into the trash can. None of it made any sense to me. I was asked to go do something and get information on whatever, and I'd walk around, and an hour and a half later I'd come back. They'd say, where have you been? I said, what do you mean, where have I been? I had no idea what was going on. So I had some issues. I had to urinate every 90 minutes for years. The sound of the towers collapsing affected me when there were certain kinds of thunder that had the same or similar sound. Yes, yeah, a number of health issues involved in that. Although I got myself checked out and I was given a clean bill of health. So, and I'm still here. Happy to be here. Thank you. Do you have any other survivors that you speak to or keep in touch with? Vic Guanera was the one that he and I saw each other frequently. There was another fellow, George, who was in security. We get together from time to time. Vic Guanera, who is one of the main characters in the book, has since passed away. And we used to have an annual picnic of the World Trade Center in operations, all the people that ran and maintained those towers. We did that for the first 5 years. And then we did one every 5 years. Now we're doing it one every 10 years. So that one's coming up, I think, this summer. So that's when we go to that, then we see people. But I no longer see people that, and being 24 years ago, many of the folks have moved out or passed away and retired, and I've lost track of them.
Yeah, that's really crazy. I'm sure you do run into some people when you do go to the towers. Let's see. Have you had a spiritual experiences after your ordeal? So I think some of the dreams were, right?
Well, you could call those spiritual if you'd like. My favorite is during the day when I was out on Church Street and I was going to go to the towers to help. And that little voice said, "Walk east." And there was no question but to obey it. Now, had I not walked east, I'd have been at the base of those towers and would have been killed. Now, let's see. Let me see if I can find a quote here. Anyone that reads the Bible or goes to church may or may not recognize this. From Easton's Dictionary of the Bible on angels, it says, God employs the ministry of angels to deliver his people from affliction and danger. Now, in Psalms, the 91st Psalms, verse 11, this is what it says. He shall give his angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. They shall bear thee up in their hands, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone. Now, this all links into a time to die. If it's not your time to die, the Lord's angels come and direct us out of harm's way. If it is our times to die, there are no angels to direct us out of harm's way because it's our time to die. This is a whole different subject that someday you might want to have a podcast on. And I discuss that when I'm asked to speak in churches about 9/11. I add that whole thing about no one dies before their set time. And then I give real life examples from that day, quoting scripture and giving examples of people that did die and those people that did not die. Some incredible examples, people that escaped. So yes, we could say spiritual, that works.
Yeah, definitely.
Do the family of those who did not survive have a support group together? Oh, there must be hundreds of support groups. I've not been a part of any of them, but I've heard about them over the years. Yes, yeah, they do have support groups.
Yeah, for sure. So do you want to do another book giveaway for another? We had a bunch of people enter.
Sure.
We could do another book giveaway if you'd like.
Absolutely. I'm happy to autograph the copy and send them out to your listeners.
Yeah, definitely. I think that would give you. I mean, you could go and download it. I think Dartmouth as well.
I think we've all lost
Do it for free as well. But this is a little bit more personable. Thanks for coming to the show and being a part of our live audience, I guess is what you'd say.
Well, I'm always happy to make a contribution if I can.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. Well, we got some people in here. If you stuck with us this long, you know.
I'll stay till sunrise.
Yeah.
People that have jobs in the morning won't appreciate that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, we'll do another. So you just type in Eric in the chat, and it'll sign you up for the giveaway for a free autographed book, and Eric will mail it to you. So you just type Eric and pound Eric in the chat if you'd like to enter. It's kind of a way to give back to the listeners who are here for the live.
Yeah,
This doesn't do much for the people on the replay. It's still very cool.
I enjoy all the comments. Well known. This is fun. You've got a terrific group of people here.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love the people that I have here. There's not a single person here that I don't like. You know, great people, support. I go to their shows. They go to my shows. It's really interesting to have people, ask questions and stuff like that. And, provide a different content.
Yes. My brother just ordered Eric's book. Well, thank you.
Oh, okay. Early Christmas present. My brother just ordered Eric's book for me. I showed it to him. A few minutes later, he came in and told me he ordered it. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, wonderful. How am I today? I'm doing well, thank you. That's Johnny Yarborough.
Johnny Yarborough, yep.
How are you today? I'm doing extremely well. Thank you. Happy to be here to do what I can. I have to look up Romans 8:38. I'll have to look that one up.
Oh, Strupit knows 2 firefighters that lost their lives.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, I had somebody on from Ladder 10 who was retired through Ladder 10.
Okay.
You know exactly who those guys were. He can name any firefighter you commented, but it was pretty interesting.
Here's Rainbow Melon.
Roach.
Look at this. Anita Roshan.
Anita Roach.
Roach. Good. And have you developed any phobias to this experience? Not that I'm aware of. I'm not quite sure what the definition of a phobia is. It might be standing on the train platform when the expresses go by. That took me years to get over hanging onto the back rail with my back to the trains. But I've gotten over that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really crazy. I'm glad you overcame all of that, and
people have asked me, and in some of the interviews they've asked me how are you able to be so calm about all of this when you discuss it, and to get through all of that experience. And well known, right at the beginning, I was bound and determined not to let the experience of 9/11 control me. I know too many people and one of them is still out 24 years later, could not get a hold of themselves and take control of themselves. I was determined not to allow that to happen. And so far, as of this evening, I've been successful. I had to rise above it and move on. I wanted to be in the position to be able to assist others and not be the one that was that needed assistance, if that makes any sense to anybody.
Yeah, that makes
No.
perfect sense.
Do you have a fear of going into tall buildings because of your experience? No, I don't. And I go up and down elevators, and oh my God, there's an elevator story in my book that it's pretty gripping. There were 101 elevators in each tower. I only know of 3 elevators that survived. Now, there may have been others, but I only know of 3. And people that were in those elevators were blown to the bottom of the shaft by the fireballs, and of course they never made it out.
Wow.
Just an
Yeah, I'm
incredible.
terrified of elevators for some reason.
So no, I was able. I'm not afraid of going into tall buildings because one, interestingly enough, if whoops, I just did something funny. If you know that you don't die before your time, now it doesn't mean we're foolhardy. That we just carry on with we have to carry on with our lives. We have to move forward. One of the executives shortly after 9/11 said that last night they allowed her daughter and her friends to drive across the George Washington Bridge, and she thought she made a mistake. She said, "What would you have done?" And I called her by her first name, and I said, I would have let them go in and live their life. You know, if we're going to let the bad guys control our lives, then they've won. We have to carry on.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, that's definitely a very solid point. You can't let the bad guys win.
You cannot. You cannot.
Let's see. Rainbow Melon says black people never win. Trying to go through. So it looks like that's most of the questions that we have here. Is there anything that you would like to tell the people that are listening right now that, you know, may be going through something and they just kind of need that little bit of extra wisdom and, you know, something you could reach out and tell around 100 people, you know,
Yes.
you can give them a
Yes.
little bit of advice.
Oh yes. No, that's a good question, and the answer, I've got a couple of points. For example, I enjoy the phrase "live each day as if it were your last." If we knew that this was our last day on Earth, how would we behave? I wouldn't be my normal, and these are umbrella terms, of course. I wouldn't be my normal, selfish, mean, short-tempered self. If I knew I was going to leave Earth by sundown today, I'd be a different person with my spouse, my family, my friends, my colleagues. So if we lived each day as if it were our last, we're going to be better people. Don't put off until tomorrow what you can do today, which is Benjamin Franklin. Isn't that the truth? How many of those people that kissed their wives and husbands and children goodbye that morning knew that they weren't going to return? You know, don't put off what we have to do. Do it today. Do it now. We may not have a tomorrow. So I've tried to apply that to my life. Another one is don't let your emotions dictate our actions. Oh gosh, that's a tough one. So often our emotions control us, and once we calm down, we realize we've made a big mistake. Try to keep calm, balanced, steady, level, so that we can think clearly what the right thing to do is, and then do what we think is the right thing to do. It makes a huge difference in our lives. And I've tried to do this the last 24 plus years, and it helps. no, another whole podcast on all of these. These are fabulous, fascinating.
Yeah, definitely. And this isn't the only time you'll be on here. I'll bring you back on, and you can come on, and even you could just talk to the people, and maybe if you got a message to spread, hey, I got to come up and I got a message I want to let everybody know. And
Well, I don't have a message that I stand on a soapbox to talk about, but if people ask questions and want to know
yeah,
answers, if I can answer them, I'm more than happy to do so. Life is fascinating, and there's
yeah,
more to life than we're led to believe. And my gosh, someone in the comments said something about I've led an interesting life. Well, boy, oh boy, have I ever. Right from the start, from being an Army brat, living all over the country, and my dad being in the military, living in China and Japan, and our home base was in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. We lived in a big ramshackle wreck of a house, 25 rooms, 8 working fireplaces, 2 barns, a chicken coop, and 5 acres of land so we could grow a lot of vegetables. My mother was a single mother, and she knew how to make a nickel go a mile and a half, and
yeah,
and then uh, and then for 12 years I was a professional oboist. I played a season with the National Symphony Orchestra, and then I won and I was only a freshman and sophomore in high school with all of this, and then I won a 4-year scholarship to Valley Forge Military Academy, got commissioned, asked to go to Vietnam. They sent me to Germany, and gosh, life has been fascinating.
yeah. Life is a beautiful thing.
Had a lovely wife for 38 years, and we had a delightful time.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody's saying thank you so much for coming on and telling us your story. How can people reach you or get a hold of you? Do you have a website or something like that we could send people to if people are interested in having you on their podcast? What do they do to go about that?
I do have a website. All they need to do is type in RonningenKeynotes.com for keynote speaking or whatever. And those people, if anyone wants to reach out to me, I would suggest you do it privately. Get a hold of Well-Known and ask him to give you my email address.
Okay.
Well-Known and I went through my speakers bureau, who's out in Phoenix, and she's a lovely lady, but she's going through some difficult medical issues, and it'd be better if we just did it one-on-one. And I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, definitely. So if you guys are interested, if there's any content creators that are listening to this, even on the replay, go ahead and feel free to contact me at wellknownlocal@aol.com, and I'll get you a hold of Erik. I'll push you in the right direction. And I do appreciate you coming on, Erik. I appreciate you giving us extra time and answering everybody's questions. Let's see here. We got one last question. Barbara Buffalo wants to know if you have another book coming.
I'm not an author, and I've been asked that question 100 times, but I don't know. Suggest what another book should contain.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just for fun, I started one the last 2 years. I've been retired now 10 years at the end of this month, and the last two years that I was working, again, I had nothing to do really. Different story. So I started writing an autobiography. So I don't know. Not at the moment. There's not another book coming. But if
You
there's
do have an amazing story.
Yeah. Thank you, Erik, and Well-Known. Yeah, Kathy, thank you. Delightful to be here. Yeah, life is short. And it goes quickly, especially when you get old. Suddenly it's behind you.
Let's see, Eric, were you part of the 9/11 Commission?
What I did, it's an interesting question. Because I architected the database for the new security access control system, I put together a database that tried to identify everyone that had signed in, checked in the morning of September 11th. Now, the fellow that was running that database, when he escaped, he didn't even think of pulling the disk out for the 11th. So I used the one for September 10th to identify all the people. And I put that together, and that was presented to the 9/11 Commission. So that was the extent of my involvement with that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and your book's on Amazon. So anybody who's listening to this on the replay, the book is on Amazon. There is an audio book that is free, I believe, through Kindle, and all Eric asks is that you leave him a good review and after you read it, and don't let him know about any spelling errors. There we go. Somebody dropped your link right there. I don't think that link's working well. Okay, the link I'm dropping for Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon has it, and anyone that lives in New York, the book sells through the gift store in the museum.
Okay.
But
yeah, Kathy, if you're going to buy the book, just email me and I'll email Eric and see if I can get you an autographed copy for the same price.
Good. I don't sell books. That isn't what I do, because then it bypasses the publisher, and I want him to get his reimbursement.
I gotcha. Yeah. Well, I apologize, I misspoke. Well, let's see. So I guess we're going to end off the show, and Eric, I'll stay in contact with you, and you're more than welcome to message me if you want to come
Good.
back on and stuff like
Good.
that. And we'll definitely do this again.
Good. Well, thank you for having me on, Well Known. This has been a real privilege and a pleasure.
Yeah.
And I've
Yeah,
thoroughly
it's been fun.
enjoyed all the questions.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we'll give the people some time to read the book, and then maybe we'll come back on and people will have questions for you about your book.
I'm more than happy to answer them, either publicly or privately, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm happy to talk.
Yeah,
Good.
definitely. And this was a great show. So I'm going to
Yeah.
go ahead and end the show now. And
All right.
there is a thing dedicated to the people who lost their lives in September 11th. So instead of an outro, that is what we'll be playing, just so everybody knows.